I have Charles McFall. I'll be hosting the panel for you tonight. Quick announcement. Of course, no asking for selfies, no asking for hugs, no high fives. Just nicely raise your hand from your seats. If you're quiet, we might ask you to come to the microphone, but if you can just project a little bit. Obviously, it's a nice, intimate little Q&A with Sean Young, because you know her from all her awesome work in Blade Runner and awesome new work in Blade Runner 2049 and many other projects. Give it up for Sean Young.
Any selfies, hugs? I'm just kidding.
That is your call. That is absolutely, you can override me anytime on that.
Kidding.
That's fun. So, as I said, you can raise your hand. We've got about 40 minutes that we're going to be taking questions and that kind of thing. But I've got something for you, Sean, myself. I did not realize you were the original Vicky Vale in Tim Burton's Batman.
That's true. Is this working?
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, that's true. Until I broke my arm, I fell off that horse. You could probably, of course, I didn't shave today, so I apologize for that. But see how my arms are different? This one's like that. When I fell on that horse, my arm went in and went like that, and then it healed like that. So my arms are actually scarred from that experience.
And then after that, this part I did know that you wanted to be Catwoman in the next film. And
yeah, that didn't work out too well.
Well, I'm not trying to go through what didn't work out. I'm leading up to what draws you to superheroes. What made you want to be in that superhero realm?
I don't think it's so much superhero is that it's a high-profile movie, and in my 20s it was sort of a goal to be in a high-profile, big blockbuster picture, because then you could kind of leverage that to do other pictures. I've seen a lot of, well-to-do actors in the Hollywood system, like Nicolas Cage. He'll do like a big budget, and then he'll go and do something that he feels closer to, and then he'll go do a big budget and kind of swap back and forth. It's more of a leveraging tactic in the old days.
So that leads to I think it's Star Trek Renegades. That was a fan-made project, yet you and other large actors were a part of that. What drew you to fan-made Star Trek film?
I did not know it was fan-made. What is fan-made mean?
So fan-made at the time, it's a little different
now.
now.
The producer called me up, offered me something, and I said yes. That's about as much as I knew. Although I knew it was, I knew we were working out in the middle of, like, I don't know, Chatsworth or wherever we were in the valley. And there were a lot of people working on it that weren't making a lot of money, but just wanted to be there because they loved Star Trek. And I felt the same. I grew up with Star Trek and loved watching Bill Shatner. Nice. Oh, so what happens is, of course, you see the big Star Trek films go to the theater, and that's the Gene Roddenberry production company and Paramount Studios. Fan-made, I'm not sure about this particular one, but you can get permission from the studio to make the film. So they obviously raised money and made a solid film, and a lot of those films do really well in independent distribution. But I noticed that. So you got the call just from your agent and said, hey. I can't remember who called me, the producer. I can't remember. He's a lawyer. His name escapes me at the moment. But Tim, also the Spock guy in the other series, he directed it, and he was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who's got a question for Sean? All right, yes, ma'am.
I didn't, because the first time, it's funny, that audition was, I read the script and I came in for an audition and I didn't do very well, and I called my agent and I said, I blew it, I did terrible. And the word back that he got from Ridley and I guess Lynn Stallmaster was the casting person, they agreed that I didn't do very well, and I said, please, please, please let me have another chance. And for some reason they did, and as far as I know, the reason why I got a second chance at it was Charles Node, who was the customer. And Ridley had a lot of respect for Charles, and Charles was not favoring the blonde choice, and that was sort of the reason I got another chance, was because I wasn't the blonde, and he thought that it should go into more mysterious and more like brunette. And literally that's pretty much what they consider. You know, are your teeth straight, and what color is your hair, and are you taller than the leading man, you know? So luckily I wasn't taller than Harry, but I've been taller than a lot, so I didn't get to do a lot of parts because I was way too tall, and nobody wants them looking down at you, so, you know, that's it. But did I answer the question? Oh no, it was about the script.
Or did you know you become iconic?
I don't think you ever know that. I think the first time I recognized that the movie was going to be a big deal was when we were doing ADR, which is the recording, because I remember looking at it going, wow, you know, and not really having that experience of seeing it for the first time.
So you did go get to see it as a whole for the first time. What was your impression when you saw it all put together? Because I know you film in not in order, right? You filmed this scene and you filmed an earlier scene.
It was, I don't know, 1980, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember the music going, and then you see Los Angeles, and then it goes November 20th, 2019, and I remember thinking, that is really weird, because that's my birthday. It was
nice.
It came up November 20th, 2019, and I was going, did somebody look my birthday up? What's going on here? And I just remember being taken aback by that, and also how gritty the movie seemed at the time. But in comparison to the sequel, 2049, which is so incredibly bleak, the original Blade Runner, to me, in retrospect, looks glamorous. You know, it looks shiny. It looks so much more gorgeous, and the bleakness of the sequel just was like, it was. And in 2 hours and 43 minutes, that's ego right there. That's like, okay, I can make a movie as long as I want, and it doesn't matter.
To fans, it was critically acclaimed, so I guess it didn't matter.
Well, I think there's some debate, but it's a great movie, and Roger Deakins sucked up a lot of the air in that because of how gorgeous, how gorgeous it was, and how visually overwhelming it was.
Now we're in a new era of acting, as was in 2049, where they took your original character, but you're a replicant, so you don't age, and they took you and your face and de-aged it, with a computer, right?
Not exactly.
Not exactly? How'd that work?
Lauren was me, and then they put little dots on her face, and then...
So Lauren would be your stand-in.
Right.
Okay.
And she did all the work, basically, and the visual effects people did all the work, too.
Sure.
And I worked about an hour, and it said 2 lines in it, and then they shot me in the head, shot my character in the head. That was Ridley's special fuck you to me. But, that's long gone, so anyhow. But it was a great experience watching how they did it. And John Nelson, who won the Academy Award for the visual effects, definitely deserved it. He was quite fun to work with. Is
it a bit surreal to watch the finished project knowing that's you, but that's not you?
I mean, I'm just going to be really honest because that's just who I am. I couldn't understand why they wouldn't have put a part for me in the picture. And what that 30-second deal was basically them covering their asses to have me in the movie, but not actually really having me in the movie. And I kept scratching my head going, why wouldn't you want Harry and me in the picture? Why wouldn't you? And it made no sense, but they knew that it would upset the fans not to have me in it at all, so they covered their bases.
Fair enough. Question? Yes, sir.
Top 2 favorite movie roles?
I really enjoyed making Cousins with Ted Danson and Isabella Rossellini and Billy Peterson. It was just a fun experience, and I even tend to like to go to movies that don't have like a lot of blood or, icky sex. I don't mind nice, sweet kissing, but, I don't really want to go see a lot of that. It's gotten really smutty, in my opinion, now. When I go see movies now, I'm like, oh, I don't want to watch this anymore, I like happy movies and movies that make you cry. I'm a chick flick type of girl that likes to go see, what did I see recently? I did actually see Soldano, the Sicario, which I wasn't going to see, and my youngest son said, let's go see it. And I did like it, and there was blood in it, because I thought the characters were really great. I thought everybody did a great job. So that's an exception. In general, like I saw, what's come out recently this summer?
Of course, you got all the superhero movies. Are you
No, I
looking
didn't
for a
get to see
romance? The book club came out where they read.
I did
50
see
Shades-
it.
okay.
I did see that, and that went way too long. Actually, it was a little long. But I like movies that are chick flicks. That I like comedies a lot. You know, what are the good comedies that have come out this year? I can't remember them all because I forget them pretty quickly, unfortunately.
Well, it depends on your taste in comedy.
But Love Actually, that's something that we...
I love that movie with Hugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie. Or About a Boy. I love that movie too. And that kid in the movie went on to be in the X-Men series. He was the blue guy, and he did such a great job in the original because he plays this sensitive kid that's mother is sort of bipolar and, you know, a vegetarian, and you know, he's trying to cope with her. Yeah, I like movies that have good dialogue. Like if I see too much CGI, like I remember the last big CGI picture I went to see, other than Blade Runner, was the Transformers, and I thought, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. You know, this was just terrible. But that was my feeling, because I couldn't relate to it. There was no heart in it. You know, there's no warmth in it. So I tend to like warm,
I gotcha.
funny, intelligent movies. That's the kind I like, and it can be anywhere. Like I love Jennifer Lawrence movies, but not everyone. Like I didn't like Passengers because I thought that was just, it went on and on and on, and I thought, oh, okay, great set, guys, you know, but no story really.
All right, we got a question right back here.
What was it like working with Harrison Ford and Jim Carrey? Like the differences between the two, I guess I'm asking.
Well, Jim's a lot friendlier than Harry was, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, Harry would keep to himself, but he, you know, I saw Harry on they brought me out to Budapest for the 2049, and because he's, you know, older now, he's a lot less cantankerous than he was in 1980, and I got to sit next to him and talk to him, which that was something that never happened in you know, 1980. I wanted to ask him about his airplane accident, because he had this really major airplane accident, and I said, tell me what happened, and he told me the whole story, and I just remember thinking, holy shit. Like part of his scalp got pulled back, he had broken bones, and the only reason he lived was because there were doctors on the golf course. The golf course is around the Santa Monica airport, and then, you know, he's his own pilot, and he owned the sky, because when there's a mayday, the pilot can go, you know, mayday, mayday, and they own everybody else has to
Get out of the way.
get out of the way. And he managed to land, and then he said he was in the hospital like 5 days, and found out after that doctors had basically kind of gotten him there, and he woke up and he said, did I kill anybody? Did anybody die in this accident? And the nurses said no. And then he went back to sleep for 2 more days, and I just remember thinking, tough guy, you know? And Harry was always pretty tough. I mean, that's what they always said about him, built for tough, because he is. He's a man's man, and he's, you know, he's not that chick friendly. You know, he's not like oh, let me talk to you and, you know, amuse you, or he's not that kind of guy. Whereas Jim is a very chick friendly and very people friendly, and he'll tell a joke for us sitting around waiting, and then if it's funny, he'll go over here and he'll tell the same joke, and then he'll go over there and he'll tell the same joke, and we'll hear ha 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 ha, you know, throughout the whole set, because he wants to get best usage out of the joke, you know. So he's very kind that way, and he's very funny. He's crazy now, in my opinion, because I keep looking at the anti-Trump artwork, and I even tweeted him and said, dude, you gotta calm down, you know, you know, but I feel that way about Hollywood in general right now. They really need to stop thinking that the rest of the country is even remotely interested in what they think.
Yes, sir, right here. Look, he's a pro at this thing. Hey.
Madam Young.
Madam. Go ahead.
Rachel was an iconic figure in that movie. And when you consider the sentimental ending of the first Blade Runner movie, the writers had great potential to carry on Deckard and Rachel's life in the second movie. But they chose to dismiss that potential. They chose to dismiss that opportunity. How do fans cope with that, one? And two, Harrison Ford has enough power to where he could have said, no. Write her in and continue with this opportunity of Rachel and Deckard's life together. It could have been a great adventure. So that's number two. Number three, the soundtrack to the recent movie was nowhere near the smoothness of the first movie. The first movie soundtrack was, you could go to sleep to it or you could play it at a black tie affair. It had that kind of smoothness, but the second movie soundtrack.
That's the second soundtrack.
It was a bunch of synthesizers, noise.
Oh, it was tough listening.
So those three questions there. Why did
So how the fans cope?
I think I got you. I don't know. I can't answer any question for the fans. The reason I don't think that I was included in it, and I think this is true in other elements of my career as well. In 1980, Ridley was very, very hot to trot, wanting me to go out with them. And, you know, now that the Me Too movement has come out, there's a little bit more room for people to actually kind of talk about this stuff, but you can't really talk about it and continue to work as a woman. But Ridley was very hot to trot on me until he finally realized in 1980, I said, bugger off. You're not getting in my pants, and that's that, you know, like, I'm sorry, but that's that. And I think that Ridley felt like, because he gave me my career, and he did give me my career, that he kind of felt like that gave him the right to kind of own me too, you know, and he was pissed off when I was not interested. And then he turned his attention to Joanna Cassidy, who did end up having an affair with Ridley, and this was during Ridley's first marriage. So he was married, having an affair with Joanna Cassidy, and kind of pissed off at me for saying, like, that I wasn't interested, which at the time I thought was an amicable, like, he took it well, so to speak, you know. But I don't think he ever really forgot it, and I don't think Ridley never ever put me in another movie, and it was baffling to me why that would be. And I used to call his office and say, hey, and I eventually just gave up doing that because I saw that there was no traction there and that he wasn't going to be an ally. And I had that experience many times in show business where I didn't have the allies that I needed, and the reason was because I wasn't interested. And I had that experience so many times. I had the experience in Hollywood where people would get close to me and they'd get to know me a little bit, and my walls would drop. Not that I have a lot of walls, but you know, you try to protect yourself in that environment. And my experience was that those walls would drop and they would get close to me, and a lot of people would be very attracted to me, and they would like, even more than how I looked, they liked my mind, and they were attracted to me, the fact that I was kind of, you know, good looking and kind of intelligent. They were like, wow, you know, that's never happened before, you know, that a girl could be really attractive and be really intelligent. And that made people kind of fawn over me a lot. And when I wouldn't respond, I was in the situation where men would get angry with me. They'd be pissed off at me, like that I had the, you know, my best experiences like Chris Christopherson, who I did a mini-series with. Hot to trot, you know, there it is. Okay, another guy that you're working with, hot to trot. Fine, that's wonderful. There's no insult there. That's fine. It's good to be somebody that people are attracted to and that I think is interesting and exciting and all of that. But I said, Chris, stop. And Chris said, well, you can't blame an old dinosaur for trying. And never gave me another bit of trouble and never spoke poorly about me after that and was like, took no well. That's what didn't happen a lot for me in my early career, which was people did not take no well. And that's because there's a sort of imbalance in the business, and you get people that are, you know, well-to-do and can further your career and promote you, and in a perfect world, you should just have that based on your merit as an actress, not as a commodity in bed, you know, like not as a you know,
Based
like,
on your skills and what you
yeah,
bring to the
like
table.
like you know, nobody wants to feel like, and yet, you know, it's not just women. Nowadays, that's actually true both ways, all of it, because there's a lot of gay men that are preying upon young guys, and there's a lot of older guys that are preying on young women, and there's a lot of women that are preying on other women. You know what I mean? Like it's the wild west out there in Hollywood now, because the ability to make a movie is the technical skills necessary are wider, more widely available to more people, which doesn't mean that everybody's going to be making great movies, but it means that more people have access to make them. So it's like it's the wild west. There's a lot of businesses that are going out of a lot of companies that are going out of business, like independent companies, agencies, smaller agencies going out of business. And the big studios, like for example, like CAA, big agency, they represent Procter & Gamble, Nabisco, Mattel, and they have these actors that they represent, but they don't really represent them because they package them. And I don't know, like that to me is the death of any kind of real movie-making art. If you don't have a place where you can actually go make movies that don't require a committee, you know, that's watching out for whether Procter & Gamble is represented well enough, you know, you can see the problems that would emerge from that. I mean, I do anyway.
So if you were given the freedom to make your dream project, what would your dream project be?
Well, I like comedies. I like musicals. I don't like bad musicals. I like good musicals. I tend to like thoughtful, meaningful pieces. If I were to make my own movies, which I don't really think I have the stamina for that, because it really does take a village. It takes a lot of people to come together. I would want to make something that was kind of like Noel Coward, like witty. I like witty conversation, you know. I don't like stupid comedies, although I suppose I can go to them with my sons because they like them. But yeah, I like intelligent dialogue.
I get that. Questions? Yes, sir.
Oh God, Bill Murray.
Do you have any stories you can share with the general audience from
He's
working
awesome.
on? That's right.
I love Bill. He's a totally unique person. I mean, and he's a really nice guy too. He never an issue or a problem or anything with him. And I mean, other than maybe he drank a little too much, but I didn't mind that. And he's very intelligent, Bill. And Harold and him were very fun as well, because they knew each other and they had that relationship, and they're always bantering. That was my very first experience being in what I would call the big time, because here's another thing. I went to work in Louisville, Kentucky, where I was born, on November 20th, which was my birthday, and I turned 20, so on my golden birthday, November 20th, in Louisville, Kentucky, where I was born, I went and showed up for work at Fort Knox, where my dad had run away to the Army when he was 14 years old. So I'm walking around Fort Knox going, my dad ran away to the Army at this place. This was where he was stationed. Bill taught me a very important lesson. I don't think he did it intentionally, but he would come to the set, and as comedians do, they change everything. Like you have a 3-page scene, and Louise, my character, had 4 lines, that I was supposed to say. And somehow, because Bill would come in and change everything and improvise, and I would have no lines. And I said to Bill, if you're going to come and do this, you have to help me get in the scene. I don't know how to do. You've done Saturday Night Live. I mean, you're, experienced. I'm a newcomer. I need you not to shred me to death here. I'd like to remain in the scene. Which he was like, well, sink or float. I mean, sink or die, basically. And a lot of that movie, I ended up being the driver. So I had like maybe half an hour to do every improv that I needed to do as I'm driving through the whole movie that they would cut back to. I had like one shot at it, and I wish I'd had his chops, because he's Bill Murray and he's really, really funny, so he can come up with the stuff like that, and I'm better at that now, after 4 decades. But that was my first day out, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to be able to walk on the set and make stuff up on the spot. And I was 20. I was not prepared for that at all. I was petrified, really.
And how did that carry through your career after that? What lessons did you take?
You have to punch through. You have to get in there and kind of say, no, I want to say this, or I think I should say that, or this is. If it's comedy in particular, because comedy is so, it tends to be with, comedians, people who are used to being comedians or being funny. They are used to improvising, and they're used to coming up with stuff off of the top of their head. So they're fast on their feet, and if you're not able to be fast on your feet, you're just,
left behind.
You are left behind. You have to stay quick with them, because comedians are very fast.
I think I saw a hand question back there. No? All right, yes, sir.